guys, welcome to my channel. Let's talk about all the horror movies I've watched recently. So I kicked off the month with a found footage horror movie about a killer clown called Gags the Clown. This is about a small town that has a mysterious clown sighting, and it gets the town in a tizzy basically. And everybody's obsessed with this clown. What's he doing here? What does he want? And then people start going out and looking for him. And this film, it's found footage style, but it centers on different groups of people in the town with all different motives for wanting to find Gags. It was a really interesting concept. I love the Gags the Clown. He's really creepy, and I like that this played into that whole clown hysteria that happened a few years back where clowns were just appearing everywhere for no rhyme or reason, and then they just disappeared and it was never explained. So I like that concept. I think it was a good average horror movie about a clown. If you like clowns, check it out. This one is on Tubi. Then I followed that up with a horror movie called Yellowbrickroad from 2010. This is about a group of filmmakers who set off to discover this mysterious road in this small New England town. This entire town of people just disappeared, up and vanished, kind of like Roanoke, and this filmmaking crew is trying to figure out what happened. And it goes wrong, obviously. This is from the same director of a horror movie called Harbinger from 2022 that I really enjoyed. That's also on Tubi, so I was excited to check this one out, but unfortunately I didn't like it as much. I love the setup, I love the concept of this mysterious town that disappeared, but once they got into the town and made their way to the mysterious location, it got really repetitious and boring to me, and the sound design just, it gets under your skin. And I guess that's the point, but I was just over it at that point because it's just this piercing sound that you hear throughout the film that's causing these people to react in ways they wouldn't normally react. I think that it was interesting what they tried to accomplish, but overall I didn't enjoy it. Then I followed that up with the Babadook from 2014. This was a part of Joe Bob's Last Drive-In Mother's Day special, and this is the first time I've watched the movie in a very long time, and I forgot how good it was. This one is about a mother who is struggling severely with raising her son, who is very hyper and very needy. This mother, she lost her husband on the way to the hospital to deliver her son. They got into a bad car accident, he died, she delivered the baby, and now she has had to raise him all on her own. And she's depressed, she hasn't really dealt with her grief, and she holds a lot of resentment towards her son, who was born on the day that the love of her life died. And it's a really sad psychological horror about this mother's depression and how if you let this monster, this depression monster, eat you up, and it will start to control your life and take over basically. And we watch as this mother lets it in and then tries to fight it off. And I think that it's a really beautiful, moving story. It's very emotional, and Essie Davis is amazing as the lead actress. She goes through like every emotion in the book in this movie, and the little boy gets a lot of crap from people who watch it who say he's annoying, but I find him to be, he's very sad, and he's clearly acting out for his mother's attention. She's never allowed him to even talk about his dad or even have a birthday. There's a very toxic, abusive relationship there, and he just wants his mother's affection, and I feel like we're seeing that in his actions, and I just want to hug him so hard throughout the movie. I think it's a worthwhile watch. It's not overly scary. You barely get to see the Babadook. It's more psychological, but I like that kind of horror. So then I watched The Mutilator on the last drive-in with Joe Bob Briggs. This one is not as good, but interesting that it's clearly a labor of love from the director who made it. This is from 1984. It's a slasher horror about a group of kids who go and they're taking care of one of their friend's father's house, basically, his little beach house, and then they start dying one by one in brutal ways. And it's just really weird and silly at times. It doesn't make sense, and it's just super campy, and the dialogue is awful, but there's like a charm to it. It has one of the most brutal kills I've ever seen involving a woman. It was a vagina kill. I'm just gonna say that out there, that I was not expecting, and it felt very mean. I don't know. I don't think I like this movie, but it's silly, it's fun, I guess. I don't know. Then I watched Possession from 1981. This was another one that showed on Joe Bob's Last Drive-In, and this was a rewatch for me. This is the second time I've watched this movie, and I liked it more on the second watch. I feel like I understood it better, and I figured out what was going on more because I had already seen the movie. So it made more sense, but it didn't make it easier to watch. It's a very stressful, emotional movie to watch. You're watching this couple as they're going through a really rough time in their relationship. The wife has asked her husband to leave. She wants to be in a relationship with somebody else. She just wants to live her life, and he refuses to allow her to do that. And the film is just watching them basically be super toxic and abusive towards each other. It's just so chaotic throughout the whole thing. And meanwhile, wife's behavior doesn't make sense a lot of the times. She's just acting like a crazy woman, and the husband hires an investigator to figure out where she's going and what she's doing. And when you learn what she's doing, it's weird as hell. There's just a lot going on with this movie, but I think it's a well-made movie with incredible lead performances from both actors. There's an infamous subway scene that is just the lead actress giving her all, and it's super hard to watch but also mesmerizing, and I think that's the best word to describe this movie. It's mesmerizing. I could not look away. It was the second movie in Joe Bob's Drive-In, and I was like, I'm not watching this again, and then I just couldn't look away. So it's just like, it's a movie that pulls you in. I don't recommend it lightly because it deals with a lot of tough stuff and it's not easy to watch, but it's almost funny. It was almost funny at times. I don't know, it's just so weird and bizarre. Then I watched Missing from 2023. This movie is all centered around a computer, and this is the sequel to Searching, which starred John Cho. And this time around, the story follows a young girl whose mother goes on vacation with her boyfriend, and then she doesn't come home. She disappears, and the girl spends her time trying to find her. What's interesting about this one is her mother disappears out of the country, so she has to find ways to communicate with the police in this other country and find people who will help her go investigate. And I think they did a really good job at creating this mystery with a lot of twists and turns that I didn't see coming, and Storm Reid is excellent as the lead young girl in this, and I just thought that how they set up the mystery and how it unfolds over the course of the computer and all these different apps, it made sense. It didn't feel forced, and I just thought it was really suspenseful and entertaining. I really liked it. It's on Netflix. And then I finally watched a horror thriller that I've seen a lot of people praise called I See You. This is from 2019 and it's currently on Netflix, and this is about a man who's investigating a series of mysterious disappearances in their small town, and while he's doing this, he's also experiencing strange stuff around his home that doesn't make sense. And then the story takes a major shift halfway through and you realize something bigger is happening here. Really hard to explain this movie without giving anything away, but I really enjoyed it, and I'm glad I actually gave it a chance, because when I first started watching it, I was like, this seems very generic and weird. I don't have time for this. But when you stick it out and actually get to some reveals, I thought it was really clever and entertaining, and the cast is really good. And it's overall creepy what's happening when you think about it if it were happening to you, and I do think it's worth watching. It's not amazing and it's a little over the top and unbelievable at times, but it's fun. So I highly recommend it. It's on Netflix. Then I ended off the month with The Vanishing from 1993. So this is a remake of a French horror film from the same director. He directed the original film and he also directed the remake, and the major differences of the films are the ending. This movie centers on a man who is driving cross country with his girlfriend, and they stop at a rest stop, and she goes inside to get something, and then she never returns, and she disappears off the face of the earth basically, and he spends years trying to find her and figure out what happened. And then one day he starts receiving messages from someone who claims to have been the person responsible for her disappearance, and he essentially gives him an ultimatum that he has to experience what his girlfriend went through in order to find out what happened to her, or he'll never know. The whole concept is really creepy, it's really scary, and it really highlights the desperation of needing to know the truth for something. And I feel like most of us, if we were in that situation where we were desperately trying to find out what happened to our loved one, we would take that ultimatum, because not knowing is worse than death. The film has a great cast. It stars Kiefer Sutherland and Sandra Bullock, whatever, and Nancy Travis as his girlfriend, who he meets in the future, and Jeff Bridges as the interesting guy who is responsible for his girlfriend's disappearance. And it's really weird and odd at times. It's oddly funny. It's just really creepy. It's silly at times. And I think Nancy Travis is also a badass in this movie, and she does not get enough love or recognition. And what happens in the end is really just deeply disturbing and unsettling, but it's not as disturbing and unsettling as the original film's ending. The original film is much bleaker and much darker. This one has kind of a light feel to it. I think it's still entertaining and fun. Is it as good as the original? No. The biggest issue is the ending, because the original ending is much more powerful and impactful, I think. But anyway, this one is on HBO Max. Highly recommend it, and I also recommend watching the original. And there you have it. Those are all of the horror movies I've watched recently. Let me know if you've watched any of these movies and what horror movies you've watched as well. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I will catch you next time. Bye.